For sure, yeah. So prior to Talkingvet, my charts were taking me not only extra time after my shift, but I was constantly doing charts at home for hours, trying to log the difficulty of like both logging the conversations that I'm having with clients as well as, my observations, my physical exam findings, my inpatient treatments, my outpatient treatments, my go home plans. It was just very hard to kind of capture all of that. And so I found myself using a lot of shorthand and kind of cutting corners, which was ultimately compromising my charting ability. And then once kind of Talkingvet kind of came into the picture, I'm able now to get a high level of detail in a fraction of the time into my charts. And I have, since using Talkingvet, I have not taken a single chart home or have had to do any sort of charting at home. I've been able to do everything that I needed to do whilst on shift. It was pretty intuitive, and I think it only probably took me about like maybe 2 or 3 charts within one shift to kind of figure out the groove of it, kind of waiting to make sure I had, clicked in the right spots. I had waited for the correct lights to turn on, kind of my volume that I need to utilize, the speed in which I need to talk. I will say Talkingvet is really great. I'm a very fast talker. That's just kind of the nature of being an emergency room veterinarian. And I can mumble, and I will say that Talkingvet is able to not only understand 90% of my mumbling, but also keep up with the speed in which I talk. And so just kind of, I only had to adapt very slightly to the programming, but I would say the vast majority of the program has actually just kind of adapted to me and has like learned my speech. And I think that it's almost, it's like 90% accurate, and that's more me mumbling and me talking too quickly than the actual program. So I think the program is very easy to learn, and it's very intuitive, and it's very smart. So it allows me to see a higher volume of cases in a more effective time frame. I'm an ER evening overnight doctor, and so I see a very high volume of cases, and being able to just have the Talkingvet kind of continue to keep up with my workflow has allowed me to see a higher volume of patients with a higher level of medicine, rather than having to worry about fully documenting everything, making sure everything was buttoned up before moving on to the next patient, and kind of going through things. The Talkingvet has allowed me to have confidence that all my documentation is finalized so that I can start treating other patients. And so it's allowed me to see some of the higher volume, like as a doctor in my hospital, see some of the higher volume of caseloads per shift. Yeah, I would say the vast majority of those that I utilize is for like gastroenteritis, vomiting, diarrhea. I find that most of the things I see through the ER are pretty much unique to the patient. And so utilizing kind of just the talk to text is the vast majority of what I use Talkingvet for. But there are instances in which just generalized gastroenteritis, of just vomiting and diarrhea for an etiology of unknown origin is pretty common. And so that's kind of the templates that I use the most commonly, or just kind of my normal physical exam template for patients that are just kind of presenting for like kind of vague symptoms that are not finding necessarily anything specific on the physical exam. Those are sort of the templates that I sort of utilize, and kind of the shortcuts that I use there. So those are kind of the general ones that I. Burnout and work-life balance, I think, are the 2 biggest takeaways from this. I will say that a big part of my burnout and work-life balance was compromised with taking charts home, with working after hours, after my shift, coming home at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and then continuing to work for a few hours, or waking up early the next morning to finish those charts in a timely manner, so that if that patient were to bounce back to the ER or go to their primary care, they would have the documentation they needed. And that was a lot of pressure on myself, and I was finding that was putting a lot of burden on my just person, and also my personal relationships with my partners, my partner and my family and my friends and things like that. And so ultimately, being able to have a complete, thorough, well-documented chart prior to departure on my shift has greatly impacted just my overall health and my overall ability to function. And ultimately production kind of goes with that. I see a higher case volume, therefore I'm making more production. And so those are kind of come hand in hand. I would say for anyone who struggles with documentation or struggles with time management, or struggles with, like myself, I'm a very social individual, so I like spending time talking to my coworkers and other people in my hospital. Talkingvet has been instrumental in allowing me to get my work done in a timely manner. And I would say that if anyone struggles from those types of areas, that Talkingvet would be something that would be greatly utilized for them. I think that it is a program that has only helped me. I have really no complaints about it. It's really just helped me become a more thorough, well-documented doctor, and allow me to have a better work-life balance, and allow me to do as much as humanly possible while I'm on shift for my 10 to 12 hours, and see as many patients as I can, and spend less time writing and typing and doing all those things, and more spend time actually practicing medicine and seeing patients who need it.